Get lost, old man. The words hit harder than any slap. My son stood in the doorway, chest puffed out, his girlfriend beside him, laughing nervously, like she thought she could soften the blow of his arrogance, like she had some shield against the storm he carried. I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I didn't move an inch. I simply exhaled slowly, letting the air carry the sting away. My hands stayed relaxed at my sides. Stillness radiated from me, like a calm in the eye of a hurricane, and suddenly, the apartment felt smaller. The walls leaned in as if they, too, were waiting to see how this confrontation would unfold. Sunlight cut through the blinds in sharp, precise lines, falling across the floor in stripes that painted the room with shadows and light. It didn't bring warmth. It highlighted their expressions, his arrogance, hers hesitation, the tension that made the air thrum. He stepped forward, smirking, thinking this was a performance. "You heard me," he said, louder this time. "Old man. Get lost." His girlfriend glanced at me, then back at him, her fingers twisting nervously around her phone. I noticed it, the subtle hesitation in her stance, the unease in her movements. She didn't know whether to intervene or stay silent, afraid of making a mistake in the middle of his arrogance. I smiled faintly. Not mockingly, not angrily. A small, controlled curve that carried years of patience. A calm that comes from knowing that words like his don't dictate the outcome. I took out my phone. Not to argue. Not to fight. Just to send one message. A single, deliberate line. And I sent it. My son noticed immediately. Curiosity replaced his arrogance. He waited, expecting me to explode, expecting fireworks. I didn't give him any. The girlfriend's eyes widened. She glanced nervously between us. Are you going to say something?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "Nothing I say matters until you hear it from someone else." He scoffed, trying to regain control. "You always think you're in control, huh? I think you don't realize who's controlling the situation yet," I replied calmly. My voice low, steady, unshakable. He stepped closer, trying to intimidate. I said, "Get lost." I didn't move. I simply observed him, noticing every twitch, every shift in weight, every flicker of doubt that betrayed his arrogance. He was used to confrontation, used to people backing down. But this was different. The apartment grew quiet. Even the faint hum of the refrigerator seemed louder, more insistent. The girlfriend's eyes flicked nervously between us, and her fingers tightened around her phone. "Seriously," he said, voice rising. "This isn't funny anymore." I leaned slightly forward, locking eyes with him. "You want serious?" I asked softly. "The kind you won't be able to laugh at later?" His smirk faltered. He thrived on confrontation, on proving himself, but this was different. There was no fear in my eyes. No need to yell. No need to threaten. The girlfriend's phone vibrated. She glanced down, startled. Her fingers paused mid-motion. A flicker of concern crossed her face. Something had shifted. "Oh, are you okay?" she asked quietly. "Something seems off," I nodded faintly. "Yes, something is off." My son laughed, sharp and derisive. "You're scared. Admit it, old man." I let the words hang. Then I walked past him toward the window. Sunlight struck my back, casting a long shadow across the floor. "Where are you going?" he asked, panic creeping into his voice. "Leaving?" I turned my head slowly. "No," I said. "I'm staying right here, but you might want to reconsider who you're trying to impress." He froze for a second, confusion flashing across his face, anger bubbling beneath it. Frustration replaced arrogance. The apartment seemed heavier, as if the walls themselves had taken sides. I exhaled slowly again. Then, quietly, almost to myself, I said, "Some things are better left for others to reveal." Her eyes widened. She looked at my son, then back at me. A subtle shift in her expression, recognition, something forming on her lips, a secret waiting to be spoken. I stayed still. Quiet, patient, minutes stretched. The tension wrapped around us like a thick, unshakable blanket. My son shifted in place, his foot tapping nervously. He glanced at her, searching for support, or perhaps expecting her to step in and back him up. Finally, her voice cut the silence. Soft, hesitant. There's something I need to tell you, she said. My son froze mid-step. Tell me what? He demanded, defensively. I remained calm. I didn't speak. I simply watched, because now the moment had arrived that would teach him more than any shouting, any humiliation, any argument ever could. The secret she was about to reveal would change everything, and he had no idea it was coming. Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread. There's something I need to tell you, she repeated. Quieter this time. My son's face twisted, disbelief turning into panic. Tell me what? He barked, trying to reclaim control. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I simply watched, waiting. Because I already knew the impact of what was coming. She hesitated, glancing at him. Her hands shook slightly, phone dangling loosely. Her lips parted, then closed, then parted again. It was clear she struggled with the words. And my son, for the first time, wasn't in control. I found out something, she started slowly. Her voice was hesitant, careful, but her eyes were steady now, determined. Your father, he did something for you. Something big. Something you don't even know about. My son blinked, confusion flickering. His arrogance wavered for a fraction of a second. You mean, what? He asked, voice almost shaking. Stop playing games. I stayed silent. Let the moment stretch. Time was my ally, and I didn't need to rush it. She looked at me, then back at him. You've been blind, she said softly. For years. You've never realized it. The property. The house. Everything your father did. He didn't just provide for you. He protected you from things you didn't even know existed. His jaw tightened. What are you talking about? He demanded, his tone rising with desperation. I know about the house. I know he paid the bills. I know he did what any father should do. But what are you trying to say? Her eyes darted nervously toward me. You don't understand. You never noticed. But he kept it hidden. The documents. The deeds. The accounts. He arranged everything. So you'd never have to struggle. He sacrificed. He waited. And he never asked for anything in return. My son's face paled. He stepped back, his hands trembling slightly. I don't get it. What are you saying? I finally spoke, my voice calm, deliberate. All these years, I made sure your life was protected. Even when you disrespected me. Even when you didn't understand. You think this anger, this rage, changes that? He didn't answer. His eyes shifted nervously. He looked at the documents scattered across the table, the folder I had subtly arranged before leaving, the papers that he had dismissed so easily. He had thrown them aside once, thinking they were worthless. Now, they were suddenly everything. The girlfriend's voice broke through again. You have no idea. You've been blind to it. He planned it all so that one day, when the truth was clear, you'd finally see what he did. And understand what you've lost by being arrogant, by being disrespectful. My son swallowed hard. His hands clenched and unclenched. A flush of panic spread across his face. His words stumbled out in a rush. No, this can't be real. You're lying. This is some kind of joke. I shook my head slowly. No, it's very real. The apartment felt tighter. Every breath, Every heartbeat seemed amplified. The girlfriend's phone lay on the table, silent, as if even technology paused to watch this moment unfold. Her presence was the bridge between them, the truth waiting to be revealed fully. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ever say anything?" "You wanted to make a scene," I said softly. "You wanted to yell, to insult, to prove me wrong. But that never mattered. I was always planning the outcome." His face twisted with a mix of guilt and confusion. He looked down at the papers again. Every line, every signature, every stamp suddenly had meaning. The deed he had ignored. The documents he had thrown away. The sacrifices I had made in silence. All revealed in a single moment. "Why now?" he whispered. "Why reveal this?" I stepped closer, still calm, still firm. "Because you needed to see. Because actions speak louder than words. Because disrespect doesn't erase responsibility. And because sometimes the truth has to be shown in the most unavoidable way." The girlfriend watched quietly. Her presence solidified the moment. The weight of her words, the calm authority in mine, and the shock in his realization, all collided into an undeniable truth. Minutes passed. My son's chest heaved. He sank into a chair, his arrogance dissolved, replaced by shock, confusion, and a dawning respect he had never felt before. I didn't know." He stammered. You kept all this from me?" "Yes," I said softly. "And now you know. And now you understand." He looked at her, then back at me. The anger in his eyes was gone, replaced by a fragile, trembling awareness. The apartment was silent, except for our breathing. Time had slowed, and the moment hung heavy, permanent. The first crack in his arrogance appeared. A lesson was beginning to form, and for the first time in years, he saw the depth of what he had taken for granted, and the secret she had revealed was only the beginning. The room felt heavier now. My son sat frozen, staring at the scattered papers, the deeds, the documents, everything I had done silently over the years. The weight of realization pressed down on him, and I could feel the shift in his energy. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a trembling confusion that left him exposed, vulnerable, and unsure of what to do next. The girlfriend stayed quiet, her presence a subtle anchor. Her eyes darted between us, watching him unravel in ways he had never expected. It was almost cinematic, like the world had paused, and all three of us were trapped in this fragile, electric silence. I sat down slowly in the chair opposite him, letting my calmness contrast with his growing panic. "You realize now," said softly, "how much you've overlooked." His hands fumbled with the documents, shuffling them without understanding, without seeing. He had no idea how much effort, how much sacrifice, had gone into securing everything he now held in his hands. I didn't know," he muttered, voice cracking. You didn't tell me because, what? You wanted me to fail?" I shook my head. "No, I wanted you to see the truth. Sometimes the lessons you learn from anger, from frustration, are worth far more than any words I could have said." He looked at her, desperately seeking validation, some external confirmation that what he was realizing was real, undeniable, unavoidable. She nodded slightly just once, and it was enough to break through the last thread of his denial. You did all this for me?" he whispered, finally allowing the weight of understanding to seep in. "And I treated you like this? I was wrong." I didn't reply immediately. I let him sit in the moment. Let the tension, the shock, the dawning guilt, all wash over him like a tide he couldn't escape. "You were blind," I said finally, gently. "Not because you didn't care, but because you never paused to look. You never paused to notice the effort behind the silence." He ran a hand over his face, shoulders slumping, his earlier bravado evaporating entirely. I could see the weight of regret pressing down on him, the kind of regret that doesn't come from a word or a slap, but from realizing the magnitude of what has been taken for granted. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked quietly, almost pleading. "Because some lessons aren't learned through words. They're learned through realization. And sometimes the truth has to come from someone else." His eyes flicked nervously toward her, then back at me. "Her?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. She told me?" I nodded. "Yes, and she did it at the right time, so you would see everything clearly, without excuses, without distractions, without arrogance clouding your vision." His gaze returned to the documents. Each page, each signature, each line suddenly carried meaning. The house, the accounts, the deeds, all of it. And he had dismissed it, taken it for granted. I don't know what to say," he admitted, voice trembling. You didn't have to do any of this. I treated you horribly." I shook my head. "You didn't realize, that's all. And now you do. And sometimes, realizing the truth is more powerful than any apology." He sank further into the chair, his hands covering his face. And I saw the first real tears fall. Not from pain, not from anger, but from the weight of understanding, the gravity of truth. The girlfriend stepped closer. You can make it right now," she said gently. "You can start fixing things." He looked up at her, then at me. His eyes wet, trembling. I don't know how," he said, barely able to form the words. "Start by acknowledging it," I said quietly. "Start by seeing the effort. Start by respecting the silence and the sacrifices you never noticed before. That's where the change begins." Time slowed. The apartment, once filled with tension, now felt different. The walls no longer pressed in. The sunlight softened, spreading warmth over everything. The shock, the fear, the panic had given way to understanding. He reached for the papers, turning them over with careful hands, like a man finally seeing the weight of responsibility. I didn't interrupt. I simply watched him absorb it all. And then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, he whispered, I'm sorry. Not to me, not to her, but to himself. For the arrogance, the disrespect, the blindness. The first step toward humility is always the hardest, and he had finally taken it. Minutes passed. And in the quiet, I realized that sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that change a person from the inside out. The secret had done more than shock him. It had begun to break down the walls he had built around his pride. And for the first time, I saw a glimmer of the son I had hoped he would become. The story wasn't finished. The lessons weren't over. But the first, crucial step had been taken, and now, everything else would follow. The room was silent, but it no longer felt heavy. The tension had transformed into reflection. And my son sat there, hands still trembling. His gaze fixed on the papers that had once been meaningless to him. I stepped closer. Slowly, deliberately, not to intimidate, not to command, but to show him that I had always been there. Even when he refused to see. You understand now, don't you? I asked softly. He swallowed hard, eyes wide, as if the weight of realization had finally settled into his bones. Yes, he whispered. I understand. The girlfriend stood to the side, her expression calm but compassionate. She had played her part perfectly, revealing the truth at the right moment, allowing the lesson to sink in without force. He looked at her, then back at me. I treated you horribly, he said, voice breaking. I didn't respect you. I didn't notice anything you did for me. I shook my head gently. It wasn't about respect or noticing, not yet. It was about understanding. And sometimes, understanding comes after a shock, after a moment that forces you to see clearly. That moment just happened. He leaned back, head in his hands. The papers scattered across the table between us. The deeds and accounts and everything I had protected for him. All evidence of a life carefully managed for his benefit. For him to grow without struggle, even when he had tried to push me away. I don't know how to make it right, he admitted quietly. You've given me everything, and I was blind. Start by recognizing it, I said, my voice calm. Start by appreciating what you've been given. Start by being honest with yourself. He nodded slowly, the first genuine humility breaking through the arrogance he had worn like armor for years. He picked up one of the deeds, examining it with trembling hands. Seeing not just paper and signatures, but sacrifice, foresight, and love hidden in plain sight. The girlfriend stepped closer, her voice soft. You can still make choices, she said. You can still show who you want to be. But you have to act from now on, not just apologize. He looked up at me, eyes glistening, and for the first time, he seemed truly small, not weak, but aware of the enormity of what he had taken for granted. I will, he said quietly. I don't want to be that person anymore. I let the words settle. They didn't need embellishment. They carried their own weight. Minutes passed in quiet reflection. The apartment, once filled with tension and defiance, now felt like a place of awakening. The sunlight through the blinds softened, casting long warm shadows across the floor, illuminating everything that had been hidden and everything that was finally being understood. I leaned back in my chair, letting a small, calm smile cross my face. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that come wrapped in discomfort, I said softly. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to finally see the foundation beneath you. He nodded again, the words sinking deep into his chest, a lesson he would not soon forget. You've always protected me, he admitted quietly. I should have noticed sooner. I should have respected you, even when I didn't understand. You did what you had to do, I replied. And now you will do the same for yourself. You will carry what you've learned, and maybe someday, pass it on to someone else. He swallowed, a single tear slipping down his cheek. A long, steady exhale, and I knew it, the transformation had begun. Not complete, not final, but undeniable. He had been humbled. He had been made aware. And in that awareness, there was hope. The girlfriend stepped aside, a quiet smile on her lips. She had been the messenger, but the lesson was real, and it had reached its target. My son looked at the papers one last time. Thank you, he said softly. For everything. For everything I never saw. I nodded. And that's when I realized, I said quietly, sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Sometimes patience and a single right moment can teach more than words ever could. The apartment was silent again, but this time it was peaceful. The lesson had been delivered. The secret revealed. The truth finally seen. And in that moment, I felt it. A quiet sense of closure. A sense that the lesson had not been wasted. And that even the most arrogant of hearts could learn, could change, could finally see. The sun continued to stream through the blinds, casting long golden stripes across the room. And for the first time that day, my son didn't argue. He didn't resist. He simply understood, and that, in itself, was enough.